call to come. Okay, yeah, it's recording now.
All right. Please, can somebody confirm they can see my screen?
Clearly.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so like I said earlier on, tonight we'll be talking about capacity planning. Please, for the purpose of the recording, please let's stay muted. Let's turn our cameras off so that we don't distract others, and there will be opportunity for us to ask questions. Kind of intermittently, I'll be asking if anybody has any questions, or if you don't want to forget it, the best thing is just to put it in the chat, and then we can pick it up after the session. Okay. So tonight we're just going to cover these areas. We want to know the meaning of capacity planning. We want to understand some things about capacity planning. How do we get the data for us to plan the team's capacity? What are the benefits of actually carrying out this exercise of planning your capacity? And then what are those factors that you need to consider while you're planning the capacity, the team's capacity, how the calculations are done, and also the location on Azure DevOps, which I think we've covered while we're going through the Azure DevOps and all that. So that is what we'll be doing tonight. So we're going to start by knowing the meaning of capacity planning. Just the calculation of a Scrum team's available productive hours for the next sprint. That's what you're calculating. Okay, and it helps you to determine the capacity you need or require in order to plan and commit to work in the other sprint you're going into. You're able to analyze the capacity you have, and that helps you to commit to work that you're going to do. But by the time we're looking at the benefits and all that, we will see more about how the capacity helps us. Okay, so let me just quickly just use a very simple example that we can walk through, a very simple scenario that we can walk through just to tell us what we're talking about here. So let's assume there is a baker, somebody owns a bakery and normally has works with 10 staff in the bakery. They produce bread and they work with 10 staffs in a particular day. And in a particular day, they get out, let's assume they are able to get out about 400 breads. So that invariably just tell us that each baker makes 40 bread, isn't it? If they are turning out 400 in a day. We're just building a scenario here. So, okay, and then at a particular day, and that they do that, let's assume they do that every day. So on a particular day, the man gets a call from let's assume 2 or 3 of his staff to say that, oh, okay, this one has an emergency, I can't come in. This one's child has an emergency, it can't come in. And let's assume the third person has actually taken the day off, or is not able to come and everything. And like we said, with that 10 staff, they're able to turn out 400 bread. Now he's left with 7, isn't it? Just 7 bakers to turn out bread and all that. How many bread would they turn out now? Would they be able to turn out? Anyone on mute and talk?
Do you repeat it again, please, Muche?
Okay, you'll pay me for repeating. Okay, so a baker makes bread and they turn out, the output per day is 400 breads they turn out per day, and he uses 10 staff, if I can call them baker also, because they are bakers also, to turn out those 400 per day. So I said invariably that means one of those bakers, each person turns out 40 per day, isn't it, for them to be able to get 400 in a day. Now, okay, so this particular day, 3 staff members are not going to come in. 2 called in, they had an emergency. 1 had already taken a day off. How many bread are we getting that day? How many outputs are they going to come out with that day?
280.
Hello?
280.
280 lose of yes, 280.
It's 280, isn't it?
80, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, so in a situation where the baker already knows about these people not turning up on time, yeah, let's assume that all those 400 bread that turns up goes into shops, to stores. Let's assume they go into 4 stores. So each store is getting 100 each. And this baker already has this information roughly 2 to 3 days before the day that the people are not going to turn up. If you're the baker, it will be normal for you to just call those stores, isn't it, and tell them, oh, sorry, you're not going to get the 100 you normally get. You might be getting 70, not the 100 you normally get, because we're short-staffed, isn't it? You would have prepared them before that day happens, so that they don't turn up to the stores and start telling them stories on the exact day that is going to happen. So they are aware. So somehow your capacity planning goes that way. Okay, so you want to know the team's capacity that you have going into a sprint, so that by the time you're committing to work based on the capacity that you have. You don't overcommit to work. Let's assume maybe a sprint that has just ended. You have your full team member. They have 400 hours to spend. And when they have 400 hours to spend, they're able to complete 300 story points, of work. They're able to complete 300. Now, you're going into a new sprint. You've planned your capacity and you know that your team members, some members are not going to be around, some members are going on holiday. So you're not going to get that 400 hours that you have when you had your full team member. Maybe this time around, you're going to get 280 hours and all that. And then you get to your sprint plan. You know that already. You get to your sprint planning. The PO is saying, oh, well done, team. We delivered, the effort we delivered the other time was 300. We're able to carry out 300 story points, which are on maybe, let's assume 10 stories. We're able to carry out that. I'm just giving an example now. We're able to do that. So let's do it again. Now, this is where you come in and tell the the PO that, sorry, we don't have the same capacity as we had last sprint. Last sprint, we had a full capacity and we're able to do that. So if we take in the same 300 story points like we did the last time, we'll be overcommitting. We won't finish what we're taking to sprint. We won't be able to achieve the sprint goal because we have less capacity to work with. And that is why you as a Scrum Master need to calculate your team's capacity. And like I said, it gives you an informed decision when you're planning, your sprint planning, and when you're committing to work. And that's why, even though you've done the estimation and all that, and the PO is saying, okay, so that means we're able to put all this in, that you've planned the capacity, you know that you don't have a full capacity. This is where you come in and you negotiate with your PO to say that, oh, I don't think we'll be able to complete everything because we have less team members. Let's not even use story points now. Let's assume that the full team were able to do 20 stories the previous sprint, and the PO wants you to take the 20 stories in this time around, and you have less capacity. Maybe you have 3/4, not even 3 people. Maybe you have 3/4 staff, or you have half the staff. It's summertime, everybody has gone on holiday. You'll be able to negotiate with the PO to say that, oh no, we can't take the same the same number of stories in because we have less people to do it. If you don't plan your capacity and you take that in, you won't be able to finish. You will overwhelm your team members. You will stress them out. They will work under pressure. And when they work under pressure, they might not be able to bring out the best value. Best value might not be added to the product because they were under pressure. They're working under pressure. So there's every possibility that they let things slip. The keywords didn't test properly because everybody is rushing to try and satisfy the PO in order for us to finish what we have. And that is where you come in as a Scrum Master, as a shield to your team, to negotiate that aspect with the PO to say that we can't take everything in. Can we take in the most prioritized one, maybe 10 of them, and then we'll leave the other ones? Then if we're able to finish on time, we might not be able to take everything in, but we can see what we can take in again if we finish on time. rather than allowing everything in, knowing that we won't be able to finish it. There's no need taking everything in when we know we won't finish it, and then we have it at the back of our mind that, oh, we'll carry over. Carrying over work from this sprint into the other sprint is not agile best practice. Is not one of the best. It happens, don't get me wrong, but it's not just one of the best practices. And if there is a way you can improve that process by not taking everything in, so that they can concentrate on the little they are taking in. Remember, agile is all about doing it little by little, and just adding that incremental value as you go along, rather than taking a whole in and, like I said, overwhelm the team. Okay, so that is why we plan capacity for the team. Okay, so that's just to put it for us in the layman's terms, and then that helps us to get better in what we want to discuss this evening. So okay, we just have a bit of understanding. After that I've said, we have a bit of understanding more now on the technical aspect of things. So a team's capacity is based on the team's productive hours. So I might not go on holiday, but that doesn't mean the whole I'm working 7 hours a day for 5 days. That's 35 hours. That doesn't mean my whole 35 hours is seen as productive when it comes to development work. Okay, so that doesn't mean the 35 hours you're using at work, does that mean I have some unproductive hours? No, even your lunch time is not counted with this. But when they say productive hours, it means the hours you are focused on actually developing, actually testing. Yeah, that is what the productive hours means. So there are other times you spend also, you go for training, you go for meetings, they are productive also. But remember, when you're going for all those things, even those things are preparing you for the development work. That is not when actually as a developer is coding, or a tester is actually carrying out manual or automation testing. So those are the times that are seen as the productive hours. So I just want to explain that, so that when we start seeing that during the workings of the planning, where we're doing it, you don't feel, oh, so does that mean there are some hours that are not counted as productive? Okay. Another thing is your capacity is planned based on the team members' availability. You can't plan for somebody that is on holiday. You can't plan for someone that is not going to be there. A team member had already tell you, I'm not coming tomorrow. I'm not feeling well today, so I'm going to take time off tomorrow. We can't still plan work for the person to say that, maybe Chris will turn up, so let's take that work in for Chris. He had already said it, that he's not going to be there. So it's only based on your team's availability. That's what you use to plan your capacity. And it is done 2 or 3 days before your sprint planning date. So you don't do your capacity planning on your sprint planning date, and you don't do it after your sprint planning for the sprint you're in already. So you do it a day or 2 before. Remember, you need that information in order for your team to be able to commit to the number of work that they need to do during that sprint. Okay. NET, I'm seeing your hand, but let me just finish with this understanding capacity, and then I'll take your question. Okay, and then another thing we need to understand is that you need to give consideration to your team member status. Okay, so some team members are full team member. Okay, Super Alpha has all its members, they are full team members. But there are times in a project things happen, and then you have to borrow a resource or share a resource. So when you borrowed, or you have a borrowed or a shared resources, you don't give them the same amount of work that a full team member has. Remember, you're sharing them. You borrow them from another project. You're sharing them with that project. So there will be a percentage of their time that they're using on your project, and another percentage they're using on their own project. So there's no way you can give them the same amount or plan for them the same way you're planning for a full team member. All those you have to put into consideration when you're doing your planning, so that you're getting the right capacity planning in place. Okay. And another thing is the team's capacity is an estimate. Like I said, is an estimate of a future activity, which is your next sprint, not the sprint you're in. And while your velocity measures the past activity. Remember when I was explaining about the baker, normally they turn out 400. So that's the past activities. That's something past that they've done. The new day they are going to, which represents our new sprint, is already had the information that 3 of his members are not going to be around. So he needs to plan based on that information. They can't plan based on, it can't say, okay, 3 of them are not going to be around, but we're still going to turn out 400 bread. That means within the 7 people, we expect them to run maybe two oven in between themselves, and anything can happen. So you like that was why I said you don't want to overwhelm or pressure your team members. So you just commit to what you have. You can only work with what you have. You can't you can't do loads of work with imagination, of people that are not going to be there. You have to be practical. You have to be realistic when you're doing your capacity planning. Okay, so, and then the last one is just to use this to understand, to marry together your capacity and your velocity, how they work together. Yeah, when we get into it, I will explain better. Okay, so it says, let's use this, which is capacity that we might have. Okay, so remember that capacity also, I can tell you now that, okay, I'm going to be here full time. I'm giving my 40 hours. It's still an estimate, because even though you've told me, even you yourself that you've told me that you're going to give full capacity, you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. Anything can happen. You can have an emergency. Do you understand? So that is why we call it an estimate. Even though you've told me, it's still an estimate. It's not accurate. Okay, let's use this that we might have to achieve this work that we want to do, which is your sprint goal, based on our past performance. Remember, the output of the bread is the past performance. So you can only use what you have to gauge if you're able to meet up with your past performance, or if you need to reduce that if need be. Okay, that's why you calculate your capacity. NET, let me take your question now before I go to the next slide, so that I knock that off. Yeah.
Thank you, Moji. You've actually talked on part of what I wanted to ask. Like you said, this should happen to about 3 days before sprint planning. But my question was, if you have planned based on people's availability and then there's an emergency, do you then go back to change that estimation during the sprint, or you leave it as it is? Based on, for example, if they said they were going to be available 7 hours and now the 7 hours they can't be there because they've had an emergency, do you go back to change it during the sprint, or you leave it? And then secondly, I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to confirm that it's the Scrum Master's role pre-sprint to, impute all this estimation based of availability. Do the members make that known to her, or she needs to ask them, or there's somewhere where they put that information?
That's the next slide we're going to.
Okay.
So I'll answer that question with the next slide we're going to talk about. Regarding your first question about going back to change things and all that, really you don't need to go, because you've calculated it already, remember? You calculated it already. So what can happen is this: in a situation where that happens, definitely maybe you got to know about it, and then you will receive maybe a chat or an email from that person to say, oh, I have an emergency, I won't be able to come in today due to this. Once you say that, during the stand-up, you need to update the team members. So you update your team members that, okay, this person is not going to be around. Is he working on any priority? So it's possible that there is a critical priority story that person is working on. Yeah, if that is the situation, where you check around, and then maybe one of the team members says, oh, there is something he's working on that we must deliver this sprint. Maybe the top priority story, he's the one working on it. Once we know that, and then the team is able to plan around that to say, okay, who is working on a less priority story? Who is going to drop that in order to pick this that this person is working on? Now, another thing that we need to understand is how many days is that person taking off? Is just going to be that one day? If it's just that one day, that's fine. The person can come the next day and pick it up. If it's a big emergency where you think till the end of the sprint, yeah, that person might not come back to do that. That is when you look you collaborate with the team members to say who can pick that up to work on. Let's assume now you have back-end developers that are working together and everything like that. They have the same environment that they are working on. there's every possibility if you have a dev lead that the dev lead will say, oh, leave it with me. Have that person, the dev lead will have a meeting with the developers to know, okay, who can pick that up. He might even be the one that will pick it up himself because he has an understanding of everything to say that I'll pick that up, Muji, to do, so that doesn't delay what we need to do. It might be possible that that particular work has to be finished before another person is able to do what they need to do. And because of that dependency, it needs to be work that becomes priority, or it is blocking a lot of other work that needs to be done. And then either the dev lead, like I said, or any other team members can actually pick that up to do. Now, if it's just a one-day thing, like I said, a one-day thing that might also block somebody else from working that particular day. Maybe that's that person, the person that called in sick, that's his active focus for that day. Yeah. And another person also has another active focus for the same day, hoping that when he finishes this morning, you know, every day you have the sprints, you have your stand-up, so you already know that person had already said, okay, when I finish with this is what I want to work on. Okay, that if you're working on that tomorrow in the morning, I'll work on this in the afternoon because actually I need you to finish that before I'm able to do this. That was what they've said the previous day. Before now, we know that he's not able to come up. And again, like I said, if they are both priority work, somebody has to jump in to take that to done and then do other things. And that person that dropped an email for you, by the time they're dropping an email for you to say, oh, I have an emergency, I won't be able to come in. Believe you me, they are dropping an email also for another colleague who is a developer to say, I'm not able to do this because of the emergency that I've had. I'd let Muji know as my, Scrum Master that I'm not going to be coming and everything to do that. So just updating you, this is where I stopped. Can you please just finish off or review what I have done to take it on so that B is able to do what they need to do. So they're not just going to leave. And there's every possibility that they just left like that. They just sent you maybe a text or something like that, depending on the kind of emergency, they have. There are times when you have some emergency, you're not even thinking about work, depending on what it is and everything. Again, like I said, if you leave it for a day, and if the person comes back to say, sorry, there's no way I can come in throughout the sprint and all that, the team will have to collaborate together to know how to get that story done. If it is a high priority. Now, if it is a low priority, whereby we're still able to do every other thing we need to do in the sprint, we can collaborate to say, this thing is actually low priority. If we don't finish it in this sprint, it's not going to kill us. It's not going to impact the sprint goal. We'll let the PO know about that. And then we'll just take it into the next sprint. So it depends on what it is, but the team will be able to collaborate on that and get that done. So that person not being around is not going to delay whatever needs to be done because we're able to plan ourselves. That is what your stand-up mainly is for you to plan the work that needed to be done, that day, and plan together how we want to work that day, how things are going to progress that day, and then move on with it. Does that answer your question, MT?
Perfectly, thank you.
All right, so the other one you want to talk about is what we want to go into now. So how do I collect the data that I need in order for me to plan my capacity? Okay, so things that you can do is how you collect your information is you can have a meeting, you can schedule a meeting, yeah, gather your team members together for a brief meeting. Some are not even up to 30 minutes. Some might just be 15 minutes or 10 minutes to collate the necessary information you have. Who is having a day off, who is having an holiday, who is going on training, what are the things that are going on and everything like that. You can do that to do it. You can ask that information also on your Teams chat. So you have your teams, you have your stand-up charts and everything, just throw it in there and everything. Okay, so we're going into a new sprint. Do it 3 days. You want to do the capacity planning. So ask that question, I would say 3 days, because if you ask that question before, a week before and everything, people might not know what they want to do then. Except if you want to be asking every day, you don't want to do that. You don't want to wear them off, with your asking questions all the time and everything like that. And you might not have the time to do it even during the stand-up because that time is time boxed and you might not have that time to put that through. So put it on the chat, where the team members can see it and just ask that question So in the next sprint, who will be going on holiday in the next sprint, who has training day offs in the next sprint, and please put the date period there so that they know. So don't just assume that, oh, they know the next 2 weeks is between here, this and this. They might not know, they might have forgotten that there are particular day that they need to take off falls within that 2 weeks. So just put it there that from Monday to Friday, please, if you're not going to be around and everything, can you just confirm? And they're confirming right there on the startup. And then you'll see people saying, oh, it might be on their calendar, but you just want to make that confirmation, assuming somebody had not put their own holiday on the calendar that you can see. So you just want to be sure. And then once they are telling you, you're able to what is it called? Fill in all those information into your own tracker that you're going to use to do your capacity planning. Okay, so you can collect it through a chart if you don't want to start calling meetings. The meetings really might be for a first team, agile or scrum team that you're having, so that you're explaining to them what you're doing and why you're collecting that. But once it's a team that they know about it already and everything, just put it on the charts. They will give you the information, and then you're able to use that. Okay, or you can create a document, create a Google document, and then just put the link on the chat and say, please populate this with your holidays so that I know, and then just to plan the team's capacity with it and everything. Give them a deadline of when they need to give you by and everything, and you can remind them also that okay, so you do it 3 days before. The second day, you're just reminding them, just gentle reminder, please, is everybody put their holidays in and everything like that and all that. Just put that there. So you can use a Google Sheet to get that information that you need. And then the third one is you can actually train the team. So there are some situations where you will train your team if you have a specialized app that you normally use to get all those information. You just want to train the team members to know that, okay, when you go, let's assume that organization has an app that they use to capture that. So you just, any new team member, you just want to train them to say, okay, for your holiday, you need to put it here so that I'm able to see it, and then I'm able to use it to work out the team's capacity for the next sprint that we're going into. So that's how you get your information from the team members. And some, you'll be surprised, would tell you that I have a dentist appointment. They will tell you on the morning of the day they have the appointment. And those are the ones that I'm saying that they've already told you they're going to have the whole 40 hours for the whole sprint. But something happens, they had toothache in the night, can't sleep, I had to go and see the doctor. The things that happen that we can't stop and we can't plan or forecast before. They do happen with human beings, and things happen to this body and all that and everything, and you just have to take it on. If the person might just be taking maybe half day to go and do that, they will come back and then focus on what they need to do and everything. Some take time off and then they will tell you that, oh, I'm not going to be in half of the day, but the remaining half of the day, this is this and this and this and this is what I plan to do. They put it on the chart, the stand-up chart and everything, and then the team members are aware of what they're doing, and the scrum masters are also aware of what they're doing. So that's how you can you can collect the information you need, all the dates for offs, day offs, half day offs, holiday, and all that. That's how you can get it from your team members. Okay, I hope that answers your question also, Anity. All right, so we'll go to the next thing we need to know. So what are the benefits? Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to collect all these? Why do we need to plan the capacity for the team? Why is this necessary? It's for better sprint planning, which I explained earlier on. It helps the team to accurately commit to work and complete the sprint. Because then you won't overcommit or undercommit, like I've said earlier on, when we know the capacity that we have. These are the number of people that we have when we are planning. We're able to factor that in, and based on the capacity is when we commit to work. So that doesn't mean if the PO brings everything, we have to take everything. If we're able to do everything with full capacity, yeah, we will do it. But if we have less capacity, we want to factor that in to tell the PO that we won't be able to because of the capacity that we have to work with. Okay, so it helps us to plan better. when we're doing our sprint planning. And also it improves commitment reliability. Over time, team members, their commitment gets improved and reliable by looking at the capacity pattern. So you know that, okay, so this person on a normal day normally comes to work. We're planning the capacity. This is not a person that just, take time off. That doesn't mean the others that we're taking time off, we're taking it out just for the fun of it, but you just know that this person is reliable. And then the people that through capacity planning also, people that they have some how will I put it? Should I say regular medical checkups, and they just take that time off? Maybe in a month they have to take about 2 or 3 days off for their maybe regular, like I said, medical checkups and all that. You factor that in because you've seen the pattern in the capacity when you're planning the capacity. So it helps you to commit. It helps to improve the commitment reliability of your team members. And then the ones that that this person, every time they commit to full capacity, they don't. There's always one emergency or the other and everything. That kind of person, when you're planning, especially for the dev leads, when they are assigning works, if they're the one that assign work to them, they don't want to assign something priority to that kind of a person, because it doesn't mean that person is going to happen, but there's just a pattern, and you don't want to commit something very like I said, very critical to that kind of person to work on. So it helps you to improve it helps to improve the commitment reliability also, through the pattern of the capacity, who comes in regularly, who comes in partially, and then who takes time off, on and off, kind of. And then it controls the scope creep also. Okay, so scope creep just means the additional work the additional work that you commit to sprint that you did not initially plan. So your scope creep is like scope increase. So it's part of the goal for the sprint, but it wasn't part of what we planned for the sprint. Okay, so it could be a situation where we started working on a particular thing, and then we realized that, while keeping this, we realized that we need to do more investigation, or we need to do a lot of code refactoring before we build this and that. Those are scope increase. All those refactoring were not planned initially when we were planning that, we're going to work on this particular aspect, when we were going to do let's just give an example of let's say there's a payment. One of our sprint goal is the payment gateway. And then while we're doing it, we didn't realize that there's going to be a third party approval that needs to be, or evaluation or validation that needs to go through, because it's a multiple gateway plan that we're putting in place. And as a result of that, that's the scope creep, because then you need to factor in that validation. You have to include it to work that needs to be done in order for you to complete that gateway. So those are scope increase. It's part of your scope. You didn't plan it initially, but it's part of your scope. But if you don't do it, you might not be able to complete what you're doing concerning the gateway, the payment gateway. And so it increases what you've taken in. And what we're saying is, when you plan when you have your capacity plan, it controls the scope creep. It controls, the aspects of that. A team is able to control their scope creep through, negotiation. Because now that we are aware, or we know what our capacity is, we realize that, okay, there is more that we need to take in. We can then go back to the PO. If that payment gateway, multiple payment gateway is what we need to deliver, is there any other thing that we've taken in that is of less priority that we can take out in order to include this scope creep that is coming in now? And then at times the scope creep might not even be from you discovering while you're working something that you needed to do. It might be coming in from the PO. The PO brings something in, they say, the stakeholders need this, it's in line with what you're working on, but they just want us to include this to what you're doing, and it is priority over maybe some of the things you've taken in. So we're negotiating with the PO to say, okay, yeah, we're able to accommodate it. Has it been scoped out? Has it been, investigated? Do we know what it entails, how big it is? We size it up, and then maybe let's assume that the efforts to do that particular new story coming in is a 13. So we're looking at taking a 13 out of what we've planned initially. in order to be able to accommodate this 13 based on our capacity. We're not just going to take it in blindly, because then something else is going to suffer for it, which we won't be able to complete. So we want to look at maybe an 8 and a 5, yeah, that we might take out in order for us to accommodate this big 13 that is coming in, and then know who's going to work on it. So it helps you to control your scope creep if you know your capacity, because, you know, like I said, we're able to negotiate that better. Okay, and then better allocation of tasks also. You're able to do that based on the availability. You're able to allocate your task appropriately. You know, I said earlier on that one of the things you need to understand is the status of the team members you're working with. So if you have a borrowed resource that is coming in with 50%, and you have a full team member that is doing 100%, you're not going to give them the same amount of work. The dev lead or whosoever is assigning work to them is not going to give them the same amount of work to do. You can't give somebody who has the full capacity for somebody who has half capacity to work. So it helps you to allocate the task that needs to be done better, because you're aware of the capacity. You plan the capacity, you're aware of the number of hours that person that has 50% is going to spend on the project, and then you're also aware of the number of hours the 100% person is going to spend on the project. Okay, so these are the benefits, not all, but at least these are some of the basic benefits of planning your capacity before you go into your sprint. Okay, so the next thing we want to quickly talk about is the factors. You know, I said earlier on that there are some factors that you need to consider while you're calculating your capacity. Okay, one of them is the default distribution. The first is the default distribution, and these are just the standard hours you're expected to work as an employee in an organization. So you resume work 9 a.m. and you close by 5 a.m. and that makes a total of 8 hours, isn't it? And then you're giving 1 hour. So your default distribution is 7 hours. They expect you to do 7 hours of work per day, 35 hours a week. That is what your contract says. That is what you signed for. So that is your default distribution. Is one of the factors that comes in, which you will see later on when we're looking at the calculation. These are one of the factors that comes in when you're planning your capacity. So another one is your Scrum event time. You know, these are the hours you spent on all your Scrum ceremonies or Scrum events. Talking about the times for your sprint planning, your daily stand-up, your sprint review, your sprint retrospective, and even the time you spend doing refinements. Okay, so you factor those in also while you're planning your capacity. And then we're talking about other meetings. Your other meetings include, maybe apart from your Scrum events, your other meetings that you have might be trainings, might be ad hoc meetings like your 3 Amigo meetings. You have coaching sessions, you know, that your Scrum Master feels is necessary in order for you to be more productive and be more valuable and add value to what you're doing. So all those are seen as other meetings. There might be other meetings also, maybe the QA manager or the QA lead organizes a training for the QAs to go for. It might be a training that has to do with a system that the organization is using. Maybe they've upgraded the system and added some new tools to it, and they just need them team members to go for training. So those trainings can be either 2 days or 3 days and all that. You go for that. And there are times when even your team members are called to come and train new what is it called, new employees in the organization in some of the tools and softwares that are being used. They call them out. So all those other meetings they go for also, you factor them into the capacity planning that you're doing. And then we're looking at team holiday. Team holidays like bank holidays is an holiday for everyone in the organization, you know, maybe everyone in the country or thereabout. Christmas, New Year, Easter time, Eid al-Fitr, all those holidays and all that, they are bank holidays. Okay, so sorry, I'm mixing them together now. Okay, so your Eid al-Fitr might not be a bank holiday, but you understand what I mean. Any public holiday or bank holiday, let's put it that way, that you have, that those are team holidays, and then that is put into you factor that into also when you're doing your planning. And then you have individual full day off. Like I've said, anybody taking a day off, anybody taking full day off, anybody taking partial day off, those are some of the factors you put in. And then you have the focus factor also, which you'll be able to put in. I will explain all those things. So the focus factor is the team's capability to remain focused on the sprint goal without any distraction. If I can call it your productive hours, it enables the team to calculate the productivity. So that factor is also, you also bring that in order to know what the team capacity is going to be for that particular sprint. All right. After all this, now I think with all these now, we're now going to start looking at them as we calculate. Bear with me. As we calculate our capacity. So with all those things now, we're going to now do kind of a practical calculation with figures so that we see what we're talking about. So the first step that you need to take into all this is to look at your sprint duration. So what is our sprint duration? We look at our sprint duration, as you can see here. This is a 2-week sprint, Monday to Friday, day 1, day 2, day 3. You can see that up to day 10. Okay, so that is what we're going to use for our analysis tonight. So calculate a team's capacity. So this is what we're going to use. And then the second step is you want to list out the name, your team members' names and the roles. Okay, I think while we were doing the Azure DevOps workshop and all that, when we're looking at the capacity page, I did say that the people you give your capacity to are your developers and your testers. Remember, they are the ones doing development work during the sprint. That doesn't mean, because I think I explained it, that doesn't mean your BAs are not working. They just work ahead of sprint. Your data analysts are seen as developers. Okay, so they are working also as developers during the sprint. Your Scrum Master, you don't carry out development role. You support and you guide the team in the Scrum process or the Agile process. That doesn't mean you're not working, but that just means that you're not carrying out development work. And the same goes for the ADM also. You're ensuring that delivery is in place and all that, so you don't. So the people we need capacity planning for are the developers and the testers in the team. Those are the people you need. And as you can see in the chart we have up here, they are the ones that has been listed out. Okay, so you have your team members. We have John, James, Mary, Michael, Chris, Gerard, and Agatha, and you can see their roles. So we have 4 developers and we have 3 testers. So if you go to the third column is talking about the percentage allocation. So John, James, Mary, Michael, Chris, Gerard are full member of this particular team that we're using. We are trying to identify. The third step is for you to identify the allocation. Now, Agatha is a borrowed resource. So that's why she has 50%. Okay, so she has just 50% of her time to use on this project as a tester, because maybe she's also a tester on another project. We've just borrowed her for half of our time during that sprint into the capacity, and we need to put that in, and that will definitely affect things. So we can't just say, oh, Agatha's time for this project in a day is 8 hours. It can't be, because she's just giving us 50%. And if you look at the next step, which is your step 4, where you get the standard hours per day or per sprint for everyone, you can see that per day for this particular team, we're looking at 52 total for per day. So we have 52 hours in a day for this particular team. And then for the sprint, we have 552, because your 52 times 10, which is the number of days for your sprint, will give you 520, sorry. 520. So that is the total we have. Now let's start putting those factors in and see the total we will come to later on. Okay, so this is just opening it up also for us to know how we come into that 552 that we have. So that's every day for the 10 days, and that's how we come to that 52. So that's why we have this up. Okay, and then now the same is what we now need to use to start bringing in. So there is a bank holiday. So the step 5 is when we now put all this factor in. And the first factor we want to put in is the bank holiday. There's a bank holiday on the 16th of January that has been declared. And you can see in the column for 16th of January, you can see 0 for everyone. So because everybody is on bank holiday, so there's nobody that is going to work, that day. So that has been factored in. And from 520, we've come to a total of 468 because of that bank holiday that has coming, because we've put that factor in. You can see that comes down to 468 from the 520 that we're coming from. Okay, and then another thing we want to factor now is the step 5 is to put in individuals full day off or partial day off. We want to factor that in. If we look at James on the 13th, okay, so you can see there on the 13th, James is taking the day off there, and he's also taking the day off on the 17th. So he's taking 2 more days off with the bank holiday. So making he's not going to work for 3 days during that sprint. As you can see that there. And we've deducted that from his initial, remember it was 80 prior. We took out the bank holiday 8, which makes it 72. Now he's taking another 2 days off. So his total days for that, his total hours for that sprint has come to 56. And the same thing we have for Mary. Mary is taking a day off on the 17th. Bear with me. You can see it there. So her own total days for the sprint has come to 64. And Michael is taking, sorry about that. Michael is taking a half day off here, which is 4 hours. He's taking half day off there, which is 4 hours, and his own total is coming to 68. Chris is also taking another half day off here, which is 4 hours, another 68. Gerard and John are the ones keeping to the full hours for the sprint, apart from the bank holiday, 8 hours, which has been taken off. And then Mary, that is working 50% for the term, is also taking 1 day off there. So our own also is coming down to 32 hours for that sprint. And from first 68 hours from the previous time when it's just the bank holiday, you can see that it's come down again to 432. Okay, so let's see another factor that we need to bring in. Bear with me. Okay, so now we want to calculate the Scrum event time. I did say is another factor that you need to put in, the Scrum event time. So for this team, they do their refinement twice a sprint, twice in the sprint on Thursdays. So they do it for 1 hour each time on Thursdays. So you can see that's 60 minutes up here for the refinement, another 60 minutes there. So they're taking a total of 120 minutes, which is 2 hours in that sprint. The sprint planning is 2 hours over there. Okay, so that's a total of 120 minutes, and that's another 2 hours. That's 2 hours there. The daily scrum is 15 minutes all through, apart from the bank holiday. Okay, so it's 15 minutes all through. So when you calculate that, that's 135 minutes, and that gives you 2 hours 25 minutes taken off there. For the sprint review is 2 hours at the end of sprint. So that has been factored in. And then for the retro also at the end of sprint, they do 1 hour retro. So you add all those hours together, and that is 9.25 hours for the Scrum event for this particular team. And we need to factor that into our capacity planning also. Okay, so we want to look at other teams or other meetings also. So Scrum coaching session, they have it, it might not be all the time, but for this particular sprint, we have a Scrum coaching session, which is 2 hours on the 13th. That has been put there. Okay, so that comes in there, and then there's some trainings. Again, it might not be all the time, but it's happening during this particular sprint that a training has been put in for team members, and that's another 2 hours. So you factor that in also. So that's another 4 hours for other meeting time that you need to factor in when you're doing your calculation. Okay, so we've brought in now the total hours for all the team members here. You know, the ones that have 72, the ones that have 56. That was the total hours for their for the sprint. And then we're now looking, because what we want to calculate here is the fixed factor. Yeah. So this is the Scrum event, like I said, 9.25 hours. So you have to calculate that for each of them, and then you bring in the other meetings also that we calculated, the 4 hours, you bring that in. So for you to get the fixed factor, which is the available capacity for this particular team, so your fixed factor is the available capacity. When you bring in this fixed factor, so these are fixed factor, your Scrum events are fixed. It's gonna always come. These ones are variables. They might not happen all the time, but they do happen. So you want to, like I said, for this particular sprint, they are happening. So you want to factor that in. And how you get your available capacity, you can see the formula at the bottom here. So it's going to be your sprint minus the Scrum event and your other meetings. So when you add your Scrum event and your other meetings together, for each of them, it will be 13.25 hours. So you deduct that from the total they have for their sprint hours, and this is what you come to. So you can see that from 432, we've come down to 339.25 hours for the team. That's the total hours the team has for their available capacity. That's what we have here, and that's the formula you use to calculate that. Okay, so we go to the next factor that we want to look at. And here we just want to get the real capacity. We have the available capacity, but we need to work the real capacity that the team has. Okay, so we just for us not to forget that this is the total hours they have for the sprint, each of them. This is the total hours they have for the sprint. We're looking at the Scrum event and the other meetings, which we've added together, deduct from this one in order to get the available capacity. Now you need to put in the focus. You need to put in the focus factor before you go ahead. Just the team's focus time on what they are working on without distraction. And there's the percentage you need to use to work that out in order for you to get the real capacity, the real hours that the team has. And you have the formula for that over here for your focus factor. So to get the team's focus factor, this 74% you're seeing here, this is how we work it out. So for you to get that, it has to be the team's standard available capacity, yeah, divided by the team's standard hours times 100, because it's percentage we want to work out. So it has to be times 100. And what we're saying is 59. Remember that they took, there is a, what is it called? There was a bank holiday. Okay, so if we use John, because John is the one that has full day apart from the what is it called, the bank holiday. So the 72 minus the 13.25 gives 58.75. I'm picking John not because you're going to work differently for everybody, but he's the one that is, himself and Gerard are the only ones that the bank holiday is affecting. The other ones took either partial or full day off, so we can't use theirs. Okay, so you're looking at that, and then it's 58.75. So we just approximately we'll make that 59 divided by 80. 80 is the standard hours. That is the hours that they've been contracted to do, and you multiply that by 100 in order to get your focus factor. So the 58.75 you see here is just explaining that we've the 59 we have here, we had to approximate this, take it to the nearest whole number in order for us to be able to do our workings. And then at the end, you get a 73.75, which approximately is your 74. So that's the 74% that you use to work out for everybody. Okay, not differently. It has to be for everybody. Okay, so don't think that, oh, the calculation you use for John, you're using it for everybody, because John is the only one that didn't take any time off apart from the bank holiday, which affects everybody anyway. Okay, so you have the 74% here. Then for us now to calculate the real capacity, it's going to be your available capacity, yeah, times your focus factor. So if you multiply this available capacity times the focus factor, you will get the real capacity for that person has for the sprint. So for John, it's 43.74, and then others also by the time you do the multiplication. So from 339, I think that was what we had the other time. Sorry, let me check. Yeah, 339.25. The real hours that these team members that they have is just 251.01 for the whole sprint, and that is it per day. This is what it is per day. So the team has a 27 hours, 27.83 hours per day, the total team, not just one person. And then for the whole sprint, they have 251.01. Remember, we're coming from 520. So you can't just assume that, oh, we have how many team members? We have 17 members. And if everybody's working 8 hours per day, and I just time that by, by 10, that's 520. Oh, we have 520 hours, for the whole sprint for everyone. So we should be able to do a lot. But by the time you factor in all these other things, so this time, these hours you're seeing is the hours they have to do real development work, real coding, and real testing. These are the hours they have for it. You can't base their productive hours, on that other one, on the 520. You can only base it on this one, that this is the hours my team members have, and this is what you use to help the team to commit to what they have to do. Say, hey, team, this is what we have. Because we can't factor in your Scrum event. You're not coding during your Scrum event. Neither are you carrying out your manual test, automation test during the other meetings that you have, which are your training meetings, or the times you have off, you're not doing all that. So the time you're actually focused on working, and that's why you're using a focus factor, is this 251 hours that we have it. That is the time the team has. Now let's assume that there was no bank holiday, because I just thought, okay, so let's use that also. So let's assume there's no bank holiday. We have that 80 hours per sprint for everyone, and then we still need to deduct the 13.25 for the Scrum event and other meetings. Let's assume nobody took, so this is assuming that nobody took time off. Everybody is working. There was no time off or any holiday, day off, half day off, no bank holiday. That is what we're using this chart to show us. Now we're still going to deduct that 13.25. We're still going to have the available capacity, but now the focus factor will increase from 74 to 84 because everybody's working, and there's no bank holiday. So we're still going to get an 84% for the focus factor, and you're going to use that to multiply the available capacity, and this is what you get. So from the 520, you end up having a real capacity of 358.85 if nobody took any time off and there was no bank holiday.
Please, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Can you just talk me through this through calculating the focus factor? Because the sprint hours were different in the last calculation you did, and they all still had the same available capacity, whereas now they have the same hours and it's the same capacity. So they are different hours, same capacity, same hours, same capacity.
All right, for this one, like I said, the hours they have here is based on the times they've taken up. Do you understand to that point? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and we have to deduct the Scrum events and the other meetings, which gives you a 13.25, isn't it? So when you deduct that for everyone from the times they have for the sprint, you get the available capacity, which is the time you have here. Now, for you to work out your focus factor, you have to use this formula you have here. And the formula you have here is the available capacity divided by the standard hours they were employed times 100 is the formula you use to get your focus factor. Remember that here, the available capacity is based on, when we're calculating it, you have to deduct this in order to get the available capacity. But there is a bank holiday, if you remember when we started with it. There is a bank holiday. So there are 80 hours minus 8, which is 1 day bank holiday, gives you a 72, isn't it? So that 72 is what they have based on the bank holiday. All the other ones you have here that are reduced from what John and Gerard has is because they've taken other days off, maybe 2 days off, half day off, or thereabout. That's why they don't have the 72, because they've taken other days off. The only person that didn't take any day off, or the 2 people that didn't take days off, are John and Gerard. So the only thing affecting them why they don't have an 80 here is because there's a bank holiday. That's what we use in calculating this chart. And that's how we came to this 74%. And like I said, for us to use 58.75, just approximate it. Approximately, this is 59, isn't it? 58.75 approximately is 59. So we say it's saying that 59 divided by 80, that is the 80 hours per sprint is what you have been employed to come and do. You do 9 to 5, that's 8 hours, and you're working for 10 days. A sprint is 10 days, isn't it? So that's your 8 times 10, that gives you the 80 that we have here. And because we're trying to get a percentage, your focus factor is always in percentage. We have to multiply it by 100. That is why you have the 100 there. So if you do that calculation, you will get 73.75%. And if you approximate that, that will be your 74. Okay, so having had this, and I'm coming to this new chart to say, let's assume there is no bank holiday and nobody took time off. So it's the 80 hours they're supposed to work that you have there for each sprint, 10 days, 8 hours per day, and 80 per sprint because it's 10 days. We're still going to deduct our 13.25, which is the sum of your Scrum event and other meetings. So when you deduct that 13.25 from everyone, because everyone is not taking any time off, you come to 66.75, apart from Agatha, because Agatha is working 50%. She's a borrowed resource. So hers comes down to 26.75. Now use the same thing now to work the focus factor. You will get approximately, we're going to approximate it again, 66.75 will just come to your 67 divided by 80, which is the normal standard hours you're employed to work. Again, percentage times 100, because we're looking at percentage, and you'll come to 83.75, approximately 84. So that's why the focus factor comes to 84% here. And then all you have to do to get your real capacity is to multiply your 66.75 by your 84%, and you get a 56.07 for the sprint and a 5.6 per day. So each of the team members are working 5.6 per day. So in some Scrum Masters, what they do is work out what is going to be when nobody has an holiday. And then you have some Scrum Masters working with, my team's real capacity per sprint is 6 hours, because they've used this to work it out. Now, if it's 6 hours, and if the person now is going to take time off, is when you now start using the full other meetings, available capacity, and everything like that to work it out. So some Scrum Masters work, I said earlier on that you have something we call the capacity pattern. So you know that this person doesn't take time off and all that. So if your team members are giving you the availability for the sprint and everything, and somebody says they're going to do full hours and all that, you've used this chart before. It helps you to get better. So you just approximately says, so capacity per day for those that are not going to take any time off is just going to be 6 hours. So when on your Azure, when you're calculating, if this person says, I'm going to work full time, I'm not taking any time off, I'm doing my full days, you just put a 6 there per day for them, because that is what it is. So you just, for that developer or the tester, you will just put a 6 hours. That is you, if you're going to approximate this. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's a bit clear, but it's still confusing. Because
what part is confusing?
Do we calculate each focus factor individually, or is it done generally? And then
your focus factor is fixed based on a fixed number. Okay, so your focus factor is based on okay, let me go back there. Like I explained earlier on, why we're using 72 here is because there is one back holiday, isn't it? So John is working full time. He's working full day, full sprint. He's not taking any time off. So what affected is 80 from what affected him not having an 80 hours here was because there's a bank holiday. Bank holiday affects everybody.
Yeah,
and that was why I
understand that part.
Yeah. And that was why I did the second chart to say that let's assume there's no bank holiday, there's no time off. Okay, why you're having the same focus factor for everyone here is because to calculate your focus factor, this is the formula you need to use. The formula you're using is the available capacity, not the sprint not the sprint capacity now, but the available capacity, and your available capacity is here already. We've calculated it here already. How did we get this? We got this by deducting the Scrum event time and the other meetings to come to this 66.75.
From the 80 hours, yes.
From
I
the 80
understand.
hours. So we came here. So the formula for your focus factor says your available capacity, the standard at the team standard available capacity, which is this one we have here, yeah, divided by the 80. This is the standard hours that you're meant to work. So you're going to divide your available capacity by this one multiplied by 100 because we're trying to get a percentage. And that's why we come to the 84. So the 84 is the focus factor. So the 84 is saying that this is the productive hours that we're looking at. This is the factor that we're looking at that you're meant to be productive for everyone. Now you're going to multiply that by the available capacity, and that helps you to get the real capacity of the team. This is per sprint in hours, and this is per day in hours.
Okay, but for Agatha's available capacity is 26.75. And she
Yes.
still has the same focus factor as John, whose available capacity is 67.
Yes, she will have the same focus factor, but remember that by the time we do the multiplication, she's not going to come to 56.7.07. That we've factored in the fact that she's doing 50% because the focus factor has to be fixed. I understand what you're saying, that she's giving in 50%. So why are we using the same focus factor? Even if we use the same focus factor for her, as you can see, she's not coming to 56.07 because already we've reduced our own hours to 40 hours total here. So you're not going to work hers differently. The focus factor is still fixed. It's still going to be the same. But because we've reduced our hours already, as you can see, she's gonna get 22.47. She won't get 56.07 like the others.
Okay.
So our own hours for that particular project is just gonna be, she's just gonna do 22 hours, or roughly, let's say maybe 23 hours, the whole sprint for them. And per day, she's just gonna do 2 hours with them per day.
Okay.
So, sorry, is the team standard available capacity gotten from the average of the whole team's hours?
The team's what? Sorry.
Is the team standard available capacity?
Yeah, the available, the way you get your available capacity
Yes.
is just to say that this is the hours I've been employed to work. Okay, I've
Sorry,
been
can
employed
you
to
say
work
that
8 hours.
again?
10
You
gives
were
you an
cut
8.
off. You were
Okay,
being cut
so
off.
you're available. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so your available capacity is just deducting the events you have and other meetings you have from
Okay.
your standard hours. That's how you get your available capacity. So you're
Okay.
employed to do 8 hours. The sprint is 10 days, isn't it? So that's your 8 times 10, giving you an 80. That's why everybody had an 80 there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Agatha's one, we can't give Agatha 80 because Agatha is just doing her 50%
yeah.
with them. Yeah. That's why she got a 40 there. And then we're looking at all the meetings, Scrum events, trainings, and everything. You add those together to get your 13.25.
Yeah.
And you deduct it from your 80. Has to be your other meetings, your Scrum events, you deduct it from your 80 to get that. What you're saying is, this is my productive, your available capacity is like your productive hours.
Okay.
Your Scrum event is productive also, but that is not the time you use in doing, the development or the testing work that you need to do.
Yeah.
So by the time you now use that with the focus factor, you get the real capacity. So you're saying that this is my team's this is the real time they spend. This is the real hours they're going to spend developing and testing. also putting into consideration that nobody takes time off. So that your 3.58.89 can go further down if you have an emergency during the sprint, but this is what you plan the sprint with.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Moji, sorry, the figures are just
Just
messing with
one
my
or
head, but
two.
let me just take
Okay,
you back,
go ahead.
please. How did we get the focus factor again? That's that 84%. Sorry.
Okay, so no problem. So to work out that was why I've put the formulas at the bottom here. Yeah. So to work out your focus factor is your team's standard available capacity. This one we have here. The 66.75, approximately 67, divided by your standard hours. This is the team standard hours.
Okay, and then
And then you
multiply by
multiply
100.
by 100 because we're trying to
Okay,
get a
yes.
percentage.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So when you do the
Just to
workings, you
say,
get
in
an
a work
83.75,
environment,
which
yeah,
is
Moji, do you just have like an Excel sheet that has a formula so that it's not something you're doing sprint after sprint once you have a
okay.
formula that
Yeah.
works?
All right. So for the first time you're doing this, yeah, like I said earlier on, you can work it out this way. Okay, you might not get what did you call it now? An Excel document in an organization, but because you've done the first one, so this is one where, like I said earlier on, nobody's taking any time off. There's no bank holiday. And if you look at the real capacity per day, let's focus on the real capacity per day. If we look at the real capacity per day, it's 5.6, isn't it? Which is approximately 6 hours. So you can say categorically when you're filling it into the Azure where you have capacity and all that, John is not taking any, nobody's taking any time off for now and everything. Your real capacity is 6 hours. Everybody gets the 6 hours, as in all the developers and the testers. They're getting, you just put 6 hours where you have that capacity per day. You put a 6 hours there. And then if they are taking any day off, there was a place, okay, maybe later on somebody will share the screen or show it. There's a place per person that I showed us on Azure where you can go into and put the person's day off time there. And then Azure will calculate all this calculation you're doing that I'm showing you. Azure will calculate it for you. But let's assume your organization is not using Azure, or they are not using anything that can that you can use to calculate it. You just have to use your Excel documents to calculate it and everything. It's much easier on Azure. Yeah. All you need to know is to know the real capacity per day, and then to fix in the number of days that the people are taking off, and then it calculates it for you automatically. Azure had already made life easier, but this is just us understanding how the capacity, you work out your team's capacity also, in case you don't have that in place. On a normal day, some organizations, I'm not sure if it's on Jira because I'm not used to Jira. If this is on Jira, if you can calculate capacity on Jira and all that, I'm not sure if that is there. But at least with Azure that I'm used to, I know that there's a way you can calculate it. The most important thing you need is the real capacity. Once you know that, so in you working this out, what you just want to know is, in a situation where there's no bank holiday, where people have not taken any time off, my team members are working, I've deducted the Scrum events and other meetings from the standard hours to get the available capacity, and my real capacity is 5.6, which I'm saying is maybe 6. Some organizations, some Scrum Master pick 7, but let's just assume for our own case is 6 and everything. You put in that 6 there, and then you're putting the time the person has taken off. It will work itself out because all this has been already worked into the Azure features already for us. So it makes life easier for us, isn't it? We don't have to crack our brain and be thinking about the formula Moji said, Moji did anything about, and all that. All that has been worked out. But normally this is how you calculate your team's capacity on Azure. But if you end up not, working with an organization that uses Azure and all that, at least you know that you know how to calculate your team capacity. Okay, so, and I think the only thing, okay, so I didn't even know I have okay, so this on your sprints page, you have the capacity at the top, and this is what gives you the team's capacity page. Okay. So earlier on, what I was saying, let's assume all these are all the developer and the testers that we have. You would know them by imputing their activity here, which I've shown us how to do already. Okay, this is your project board. This is how you locate where your capacity is posted on your project board. So on your project board, you go through your sprints, and then your sprints, you go to capacity that you have at the top there. Now, when you put in all those 666 here, that is the capacity per day for all the team members. Okay, even if they are taking time off, even they are going to take a day off and everything, you just impute the 6 that you have in here. Okay, the number of days they are taking off is, this is when you come here. So if Abimbola is taking, let's assume 2 days off, I'm going to click on these 0 days. It brings up the calendar. I know the day that she's taking off, and put those days that she's taking off in there, and I save it and I leave it. Okay, so that is not going to change the number you have there. But when you go to your capacity on your dashboard, where you have your capacity chart on your dashboard, it would have worked it out there for you. For the bank holiday, you can see team days off here. So this is where you put the bank holidays. If it's 2 days off, maybe it's Easter period where you have the Good Friday off and the Easter Monday off and all that, you're able to impute that here. And once you input that here, this works out for everybody. You see, these days off apply to the whole term. So if nobody takes days off here, but we put 2 days off here, no matter what we have here in total. So if I put 6 days for Abimbola here for per day, and at the end of the day, that would be 6 times 10, isn't it? Which is 60. Yeah. If we've taken 2 days off here, that 2 days will work itself out minus whatever everybody has here. And that shows in your capacity chart on your dashboard. Okay. All right, so let's do a recap of everything we've been talking about. So there are steps to you calculating your team's capacity. The first step is to know the sprint duration. When does your sprint start? When does it end? How many days are we talking about? You list the team members and their roles, everyone who is a developer and testers alone. Remember, again, your DAs are developers. So if you're working it, make sure that you work it also for your DAs, because they are seen as developers during your sprints, during the course of your internship. And then the step 3 is to know your team members' allocation. Are they full-time team members? Are they shared resources? What is the percentage? So with Agatha, I've worked out 50%. It might be 40-60, it might be 30-70, depending on the agreement you had with Agatha's Scrum Master while you're trying to borrow her. Yeah, you work that into things also. And then the step 4 is to know the standard working hours, either per day or per sprint. You want to know that. Your step 5 is to put in all those factors that you need to consider. Your varying factors, which is the team's holiday, individual holiday, partial day, all those are varying because they don't happen, they're not fixed, they don't happen all the time. And then the fixed one, you're looking at your Scrum events and other meetings that you might have. The other meetings can vary, but they can be fixed also at times, whereby maybe the QAs, they always go for training for an hour every Thursday or thereabout. You want to focus that, you want to put that in. And the fixed meeting also for your Scrum event, you can have your Scrum event, sprint planning, daily stand-up and all that. The QAs also will have their own catch-up, whereby in the QA community, they have a catch-up that they do. It might not be every day, but for the time they're having it, they will take either maybe 30 minutes off to do that or 1 hour off to do that and everything. And that is helping them to upskill. The same happens to the developers. So that's why those meetings are more fixed than varying, because it might be, like I said, meeting that happens every sprint. So that makes them fixed. You want to look at that. And then your step 7 is to calculate your focus factor in order to get your real capacity for the sprint. And that is us done. Okay, so I've just put the formulas here also, even though they're at the bottom of the slides where we did the calculation, but this is just the formula also for us to work out. So your sprint hours is just your standard working hours and the sprint duration in days. So I'm working 8 days. I've been employed to work 8 days. The sprint duration is 10 days. That's your 8 times 10 to make your 80. And then you're looking at your available capacity. So your available capacity is your sprint hours, which is the 10. Remember the 80 hours we're talking about. And then you're subtracting your Scrum event and your other meetings from that in order to get your available capacity. And for your focus factor is your team's available capacity. That's the available capacity you've just worked out. You divide it by the standard hours, which is your sprint hours that you're working, and you multiply it by 10 because your focus factor is all percentage. That's why we're bringing that 100 in. And then your real capacity is your team's available capacity now multiplied by your focus factor, which you've just gotten, in order to get the real capacity. That's the formula that you use to work it out. Okay. So any question? Also, before we finish, this is just to say that I know that because this is an internship and then you're just doing 8 to 7 to 11, which is just 4 hours, it might be a bit challenging to use this formula to work that out because it's not a full 8 hours, 9 to 5 working period and all that. So it might be difficult to use this, but you're being taught days in order for you to use when you go for interviews, or nobody's going to ask you for your available capacity and all that when you go for, because they know that there might be kind of a template or is in whatever system that the organization or the app that the organization is using. It might be there, but it's good also to have it. You might end up working with a new team, a team that is, or an organization that is new to Agile. They are starting, so they're expecting you to come and teach them or to come and coach them about everything. So it's better to prepare yourself in a situation where you're not joining an organization that is already practicing Agile and you're just going to one that is just starting, that is just transitioning, or just starting everything about an Agile, and you're a Scrum Master that has been brought in and all that. You're able to use what you have, in order to get your team's capacity. But for the purpose of the I noticed that with your some of your Scrum event, when we were doing the Azure DevOps workshop, I noticed that you're recording 1 or 2 or thereabout against what your team members are giving you. But I'm just hoping that, no, not that I'm just hoping, I'm hoping that with this training that we've gone through, when you're getting those data from them, you're able to inform them properly what is meant to be. So the hours that they've given or been given to work on Blue Sky as either a developer or a tester or especially the testers, okay, because your developers might be coming in a shared resource pattern. So for your especially for your QAs who are also interns on this program, is 4 hours. So that hours capacity per day should be 4 hours. Now, if they are taking any time off, if they are saying something like, oh, but I won't be available for this day, maybe because of work, due to work commitment, I won't be able to do this day and everything. That's the one you put in now in all those days and everything. So use that to practice, at least to be able to practice working things out and everything. And then you just, just to familiarize yourself with it. And then you can also practice by having all your team members written in an Excel document. That's just for you to practice with, and then just assume that, oh, we're working full time. We're doing 10 days and then they're working 8 hours, and then anytime they're giving you to say, oh, I'm working this day, I won't be off and everything, just go into your Excel and said, okay, so IJ is not going to be around, she's not due to work commitments. Let's say that's her going on holiday for this particular time. This is just you practicing how to work with what you have. Yeah. All right, that's me done. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions from anyone? IJ, go ahead.
Moji, thank you for your
Yes.
presentation. Since we are calculating everything per hour, is it right to say that they are paid in hours?
No. Okay, so remember that the standard hours is that you're employed. No, most times when you sign a contract, they don't put days there. They tell you that your contractual hours, that's what they call it.
Okay.
is 8 hours, and they will tell you that's 8 hours, and then you take 1 hour lunch, which is 7 hours, and then they tell you you're doing 35 hours per week, isn't it? Even in the job description that you check out there and everything, you will see that when they are writing the whole thing, duration 35 hours per week.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean they're going to pay you in hours. That's why they're putting it that way. It could
Okay.
still be you're going to be paid monthly and all that if it's not paid daily. If it's not a contract is daily, and then the other one is monthly.
Okay.
But they will still calculate your hours
Mm.
per day, and then tell you, oh, per week you'll be working 35 hours per week. Some will say you'll be working 40 hours per week.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, can we stop the recording so that we can start another one? Okay, we're putting the question on it already, IJ, so maybe the best thing is to leave it. But I'm just thinking if people want to ask personal questions, so that they're free to do that if we stop the recording, since we've finished with the training session.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Everybody's quiet. It's now you're scaring me.
You've given us hard nuts to crack.
It's really not. You see, like I said, I showed you on Azure. Now Azure has made things so easy that you don't
Yeah.
need to calculate all this. But like I said, it's just something that you can practice on your own. Just know that, okay, so I know this thing is there. If I get to the place of work and there's nothing, they don't have any system that I can use to calculate it, I can do it myself on Excel. And if there's a thing to calculate it, like Azure has made it easy, well, then it's there for me to use also.
Okay.
Hi, Chioma.
Hi, thank you very much, Moji. I was actually going to ask what you just mentioned about if the organization doesn't have sort of Azure, could we, say they use Jira, for instance, but I know you mentioned that you're not too familiar with Jira and how it works and whether it has
Yes, maybe Laomi can help us. Yeah, she's raised the hand, so she will be able to. IJ, let's stop the recording so that we don't. It's not too long. Laomi, is that okay for us to stop the recording?
Oh, it's fine. For my response, it's not about so it depends on your organization, like you guys have said. For Jira, naturally you will not see capacity in Jira. However, the beauty about Jira is plugins, right? There's the things we call